Hi everyone, let me briefly introduce the guest. As you may have seen, the esteemed Khenpo Sodargye has come to our classroom. First, let's give a warm round of applause to welcome Rinpoche's arrival. In the last class, I already told you that I would invite a Dharma teacher who possesses compassion, wisdom, and strength to give a lecture to our class. But at that time, I didn't expect that in the future, we could actually invite Rinpoche Sodargye to our class to give a lecture. This is an honor to all and a blessing for us. Happiness has come so suddenly. So I want to thank all of you for the fortune and also thank the Khenpo for his compassion. Rinpoche Sodargye is from the world's largest Buddhist academy, and he is the head of Han Sangha of Larong Five Sciences Buddhist Academy. He possesses profound mastery of the sutras, the Vinaya, and the Shastras. His written works are truly astonishing, with a total word count exceeding 10 million. The Khenpo is not only knowledgeable, but also in spiritual practice, has mastered Kalachakra, the great illusory net, and Dzogchen teachings. He has reached great states and enjoys a high reputation both in China and abroad. He has visited the United States, Canada, France, Germany, the Netherlands, and the United Kingdom, Japan, India, Thailand, Singapore, Malaysia, Bhutan, Nepal, and other countries where he promoted the Dharma. He was named lifelong advisor to Lorong Center for Esoteric and Exoteric Buddhism in New York. He has been invited to visit top universities like Tsinghua University, Peking University, Renmin University, Fudan, HKU to communicate with intellectuals, and present the meaning of Buddhism clearly and accessibly. He has guided people to handle issues in academics, emotions, work, and life. He has discussed life sciences with international scientists, as well as on topics such as environmental protection, peace, and morality. This has enabled meaningful dialogues between science and religion. He was invited twice to attend International Charity Forum at Great Hall of the People, and he has earned respect and recognition from the government. In various occasions, Khenpo has shown charisma a wise person possesses, and he also put his ideas into practice. He established Jibei Primary School, Nursing Center, Sangha Residence, Novice Monks Academy in Tibetan regions, supported many high school and university students who dropped out, set up scholarships in several secondary schools, as well as helped many patients with serious illnesses unable. Although Khenpo Sodargye repeatedly instructed not to publicize his merits, I insist on introducing the Khenpo's background in the simplest way possible. It is because with the arrival of the Khenpo, beyond the usual exchange of knowledge, what matters more is I don't want anyone missing out the opportunity to listen to the Vajra words of such a holy being. Because the power of Vajra words can not only dispel our doubts, but also brings benefits to the future of every listener, even to their distant future. It is truly beneficial. This is something that ordinary teachers simply cannot truly achieve. Let us give warm applause again to welcome the Khenpo, who took time out of his busy schedule to come to our class. Now let us welcome the Khenpo.
I am very happy to be at the Central University of Finance and Economics today to share profound and meaningful spiritual wealth together in close and harmonious collaboration with the teachers and students. As for myself, I should say that I have a great interest in learning, especially when I see these highly educated, well-spoken intellectuals, including many professors and teachers, and everyone's pursuit of wisdom and love of knowledge. For me personally, this experience is truly delightful and brings a deep, genuine sense of happiness and satisfaction. Of course, today I would like to, with great pleasure and honor, join and be among everyone here on this special occasion and study together the Buddhist economic philosophy. Economics is not my area of expertise, as I do not have a formal background in the subject. But when it comes to the field of Buddhist studies, I suppose that could generally be considered my specialty. Throughout my life, I have spent most of my time and energy deeply and thoughtfully engaged in Buddhist studies. While I think that today, together with everyone present, we should look at contemporary economics from a Buddhist perspective. This is very necessary, as just now Professor Feng told me about this point in detail, emphasizing its significance. It's not unusual to find that many students have doubts or uncertainties when they are studying this area, often feeling unsure. In Buddhism, it thoughtfully teaches that one should clearly see through the mundane world and not be attached to wealth and possessions. While in the secular world, people often talk about social development and improving living standards in their daily lives. So these two, the traditional Buddhist view and particularly the current socioeconomic view, are they completely at odds with each other? Actually, that's not really the case at all. What I want to share with you all today is that, in fact, Buddhist economics or perspectives that Buddhists hold for the modern economics, it could truly benefit from mutual understanding on the valuable insights. Everyone here should be well aware of that. We has been influenced by many media, movies, and TV, so that whenever you mention Buddhism or monks, people always feel that it means abandoning all family ties and giving up all possessions, going to a monastery to practice alone. People really seem to have this impression. While this idea is unreasonable, as it does not align with established teachings, for the current, past, and future state of the economy, there should be very explicit, careful, and thorough analysis about these matters. There's a very important scripture in Buddhism called the Samyukta Agama Sutra. The Samyukta Agama Sutra states that the wealth and possessions that we have acquired should be distributed in 4 distinct ways, specifically. The income you receive should be divided into 4 parts. The first part should be used for your own needs, such as food and drink. The second part can be used for investment. So if you want to start a business in the future, you have the means to operate it. The third part can be set aside as a reserve, which means to keep it hidden away in modern terms, to save it. The fourth part should be used for charity, to help those in need. So I think Buddhist perspective is, in fact, very relevant to the society that we live in today, especially for entrepreneurs. Such an opinion is absolutely necessary. For example, if you earn $1 million, then first quarter should be used for your own food and daily necessities. The second 250,000 yuan can be used for investment. The third quarter saved for economic crisis. Otherwise, if something happens that is difficult to deal with, and the fourth quarter should be contributed to society. However, I have seen some people nowadays possessing a large quantity of wealth, and they just keep making money. Until the day of death, they did nothing for poverty alleviation or charity. There are many such cases in our world. Our lives are very short. If the money you worked hard to earn in your lifetime is never used or returned to society, then I'm afraid that, except for spending it on your own food and accommodation, none of it is used for anything else. That is truly a pity. So I'm thinking this kind of economic philosophy in Buddhism, its method of distribution, more than 25,000 years ago, Shakyamuni Buddha explained it clearly in the Samyukta Agama Sutra. The way things are distributed is extremely clear. In this way, especially the current economic climate that's very severe and complex, given the social context, I think the essence of ancient Eastern cultural thought should be applied in our society, in real life and in daily living. It is truly necessary. In this respect, it can be seen, I'm afraid that many people, including some who are especially wealthy, when it comes to the 4-part economic distribution, as just discussed, the portion allocated to charity has not been handled very well. I saw a report from the China Charity Federation in 2010, and which was quite notable and informative, as in that report it stated that 75% of all charitable donations in total came from outside of China in the past year. 15% of the total amount came from the wealthy, and 10% of the funds, on the other hand, came from ordinary people. So the majority, especially some of the wealthy people in China today, have yet to engage in charitable activities. But in the United States, it's not like this. I saw in a document that in the United States, specifically targeting the lowest income families, each year are mandated to allocate no less than 4.7% of their total household's income toward charity and other social contribution. From this, I feel that the critical concept of income allocation, as described early on in ancient Buddhist scriptures, which is indeed suitable for the current international economic concepts. The Buddhist perspective of economics, in fact, in the earliest times, there was no such term or economics as a discipline. As you all know, terms like environmental studies and economics are actually relatively new. Those of you studying economics aware of this, including some of the economic concepts in Buddhism. It was around 1955 that an economic advisor to the King of Myanmar named Mr. Schumacher, after years of research, was the first to discover these. Then, in 1966, he wrote many different articles covering various topics related to economics. And these covered topics such as the distribution and use of Buddhist economics, including the important concept of how to thoughtfully and wisely use wealth to benefit all sentient beings. He presented these ideas as understood and interpreted according to the teachings of Theravada Buddhism and the Pali Canon. As a result, nowadays, internationally, a distinct Buddhist economics or a Buddhist economic perspective has been shaped. So when it comes to the Buddhist view of economics, everyone here should have a solid and fundamental understanding of it. Some of its rather unique perspectives. What kind of unique perspectives are these? Everyone here knows that what we call economics can generally, in most cases, be summed up as being primarily about money. Everyone knows it's all about so-called money. In the secular world, money is generally considered to be the most precious and truly valuable thing of all. But Buddhism holds that so-called wealth, in its true sense, is not necessarily just external money or material possessions. In fact, there are many intangible things that we cannot see, many different forms of internal wealth, that is, inner, personal, and spiritual wealth, riches found within. I visited some universities in finance and economics and found many teachers and students focus on researching external wealth, tangible things such as RMB, US dollars, gross national product, personal or household income, and so on. When analyzing from a macroeconomic perspective, it's about a country or a region, or even international industries, sectors, and production in various fields, as well as consumption patterns to make judgments. From a microeconomic perspective, looking at individuals or even analyzing the overall distribution of all assets within one's own family. But I very rarely hear people actually mention this, that every person actually truly possesses a great deal of remarkable inner wealth. But if we don't truly recognize this inner wealth, even if someone possesses tremendous wealth, they may not even realize it themselves. While from another side, if we do recognize it, even if our external wealth is not abundant, our inner wealth can still bring us happiness and deep-seated joyfulness. So what crucial and fundamental insight do we need now? Why do people persistently pursue money above all? Ultimately, it should be said, it is for the sake of happiness or joy in life. That is the purpose. But can this kind of happiness really truly be attained just by having a lot of money? The answer is not necessarily. Some of you might actually think that what I'm saying is truly impossible With money, you can have fun, enjoy yourself, and do anything you want. It should be great, shouldn't it? But in reality, it depends on what kind of person you are. If your mindset is unhealthy or your methods are improper, then even if you have money, in the end, it might only cause you pain. You may have seen the well-known play Timon of Athens, which was written by renowned William Shakespeare. In this play, it is said that gold may even look to be quite small to the eye, but in reality, its power is immense. It can turn black into white, and it can make wrong things right, and even turn the old into the young, and so on. He explained, after acquiring wealth, a person's entire behavior, fundamental thoughts and core values can change as a result. Point of utter ruin there are such cases. He goes on to say that so-called money, in his opinion, is in fact a truly remarkable and powerful magic wand. It can easily and swiftly change a person's appearance. So Shakespeare's description, personally, about some of today's corrupt individuals, some of today's so-called bribe takers in society, in our modern world, and some business owners in the world today who lack morals, especially those wealthy people who end up harming both themselves and others. We should say, what is the fundamental reason behind all their corruption? It's because they have money, but after getting money, all their own happiness can also be destroyed in an instant. Meanwhile, the people around them that they were involved with also end up harming countless people's lives and perspectives on life. So I think when it comes to so-called wealth, how exactly should we try to understand it? If you haven't truly understood the deeper meaning and significance of spiritual wealth and what it can bring to your life, honestly, I'm afraid you may not truly be happy in this society, at least not in the way you may expect. For the reason I have been thinking about it, and likely you have as well. Earlier today, while I was reading through the latest news on a website, I came across an article that mentioned Sohu's chief executive officer, Charles Zhang. He disappeared completely for over a year, actually about a year and a half, to go into a period of Buddhist retreat. He recently accepted the interview on Yanglang 101. According to what he said, since the 1990s, across today's China, he has been an influential figure in business and social spheres. Because during that period, when Sina and Tencent weren't yet so popular in China, he managed Sohu very well. He first studied at Tsinghua University, then went to MIT in the United States. Then he started a business. After starting his business, it seemed to people that he had everything anyone could want. Wealth, status, fame, he possessed everything worth having. But later, he was haunted by inner turmoil, seeing with clarity that nothing is truly meaningful. Then he left, just like what mentioned earlier, started to calm down and stay secluded for over a year. After a year in retreat, he came out. He feels very happy and comfortable inside. So where is the source of it? Is it brought by money? Actually, it doesn't come from money. If it came from money, before he went into retreat, he also said sometimes he wanted to switch to a bigger plane and fly to Paris just to have coffee or go to Sanya to freely enjoy life in various ways and so on. But none of these things brought him true happiness in his life. What is the reason for this? Perhaps many of you young people here have never carefully thought about it. As a monastic, I have also seen various kinds of lifestyles among lay people. In the process of pursuing these things, you might think that money should make you happy, a family should make you happy, and having status should make you happy. In fact, when you haven't attained these, you keep looking forward to them. When will I have a family? When will I have wealth? When will I ever have fame? When you actually attain it, you might feel good for 2 or 3 days, but after that period passes, you no longer really feel anything. It can even sometimes become a kind of ongoing pressure, something that you might feel quite often. While analyzing the situations from the Buddhist view, people not only possesses external wealth, in general, things tend to be at a moderate level. Buddhism does not advise us to live in extreme poverty. If too poor, where you can't even afford basic food or clothing, Buddhism does not advocate for that either. Nor does Buddhism say that your life should be overly extravagant or luxurious. Because on one hand, that wastes resources, and on the other hand, true happiness in reality cannot actually be found or experienced in such overwhelming material abundance, no matter how much we may possess. At this point, probably everyone here can't help but reflect deeply in some way. Reflect on what? In fact, people already possess a lot of intangible wealth within themselves. If you try to measure this intangible inner wealth with money, it's very hard to assign it a clear value because there are so many different factors and variables involved that make it difficult to determine a precise or definitive number. Perhaps some of you here have a tendency to compare with others. When you develop a mindset of comparison and competition, no matter how much material wealth you have on the outside, the satisfaction and peace within your heart will still remain unattainable. Why do I say this? Maybe you should think about it for a moment. For example, when you have 10,000 yuan, this specific amount of 10,000 yuan, and in a very poor community, you would indeed feel like a truly wealthy person. Everyone around you might only have 1,000 yuan or just a few hundred yuan. In that kind of group, you would think that 10,000 yuan is quite a lot. But by comparison, if everyone around you has several million or hundreds of thousands of yuan, you would feel that your 10,000 yuan is too little. Since everyone around you is so wealthy and has so much money, in a certain sense, these are actually external substances, factors that really make a big difference when it comes to inner comparisons. Nowadays, many people across the world, including some young people with different backgrounds, are always blindly chasing after things all the time. There are thousands upon thousands of people constantly pursuing them. But in the process of pursuit, if you don't realize the abundance within your own heart, if you don't recognize your own sense of contentment, I'm afraid that this may not necessarily bring true happiness to oneself in the 21st century. Besides, people, for the sake of the economy, for the scramble for wealth and for the competition for status, have, historically speaking, made quite a few mistakes. In terms of spiritual values, many mistakes have also been made. I quite often think that globally now is the 21st century, and it should be said that the whole world is in an era of freedom, peace, and democracy. But if we look back at history, at the previous 20th century, the largest mistake that people has made from a historical perspective, that is to say, in the world, for the sake of money and the struggle for status, the First World War and the Second World War broke out. In fact, it should be said that these wars were driven by people's scramble for resources and competition for status, and it was for this reason they were launched. Everyone present should know that tragically, during the First World War, about 10 million people lost their lives, and during the Second World War, about 55 million people lost their lives. In the First World War,
more than 30 regions and countries participated in the conflict. In the Second World War, over 60 countries and regions were involved. At that time, in all of the countries that took part in the world wars, during that period, about 70% of their national economies were devoted to military spending. So if we think about it, in such an era, when such a sweeping history was unfolding throughout the world, after all, who collectively created this tragedy that humanity played out? There was a film called 1942, directed by Feng Shaogang. I watched it once. I dislike watching movies about ordinary life, but sometimes, if a film is representative or historical, I do watch it occasionally. After watching it, I realized that 1942 has become the recorded history. People extinguished by famine and amidst the chaos of war at that time. Even though it is just a movie, but behind it, there truly is a history, a reality like that. Then, living in such a current life, I truly think that young people living in the present are, without a doubt, truly blessed. We may have endless desires and relentless greed and pursuits in our hearts. These kinds of pursuits will be there until reaching to a certain state. Even when you die, there will probably still be some desires left unfulfilled. From the perspective of Buddhism, we should be content with what you have. Content les desires doesn't mean that all lay people should stop farming or business, nor does it mean not doing anything at all. Buddhism never says that. When the Buddha was alive, he required the Buddhist monastics that they could also engage in appropriate business activities. This is mentioned in the Buddhist scriptures. They could conduct commercial activities and trade to benefit the monastic community and all sentient beings. It's been permitted, let alone for lay people. When people mention Buddhism, they say, hasn't Buddhism already seen through the world? If Buddhism has seen through worldly matters, then why is there still money involved? In fact, Buddhism actually does not oppose the inherent legitimacy of money. The reasonable use of money is entirely and absolutely permissible. In fact, Vinaya Sutra, which is the most fundamental behavioral guideline scripture, said in the scripture that as long as you have not killed or harmed others, it is also permissible for you to live in very expensive high-rise buildings. The clothes you wear or the food you eat, no matter how luxurious or high-end they may be, are still considered permissible. Have you ever seen the 16 arhats in Tibetan Buddhism? The 16 arhats, in fact, within Buddhism, they should be the most pure and virtuous sages in terms of precepts, either in Theravada Buddhism or the Hinayana tradition. However, notably, during the Tang Dynasty in China, there was an emperor who invited the 16 Arhat venerables and treated them for 3 months during the summer. Afterwards, when they were about to leave the palace, the king specially gave them some particularly solemn, magnificent, and beautiful clothes. In the Thangka paintings of Tibetan Buddhism, the clothing of the 16 Arhats is characteristically splendid. Strictly speaking, monastics, you might think all monks must wear robes made from discarded rags, or wear tattered clothes like Zhigang the monk. This is the real monk. Anything else is not a true monastic. Why, that's not the case. Among the monks, Mahayana monks and Theravada monks, there are also some monastics who, like the 16 Arhats, possess dignified, majestic appearances, which is also permitted. Many people here may have significant misunderstandings and doubts about Buddhism. They think that if someone practices Buddhism, then they probably won't be successful in life, or that it is only either facing setbacks or hitting a dead end in life. That they would go off to the mountains to escape from reality. They view it from a different perspective. This is the current misunderstanding about Buddhism. They haven't studied the sutras and treatises in a thorough manner, not with genuine dedication. As a result, they haven't truly understood the real nature of Buddhism. Therefore, what I'd like to share with everyone here today is what is Buddhism's view on economics, Buddhism's view on money. Sometimes there are some bad metaphors. For example, money is compared to a poisonous snake, a negative analogy, while sometimes in Buddhism, money is often compared to gold. Pure wealth is pure and virtuous wealth. It can be used for offerings above and charity below. It can be used to show compassion and benefit the world. With money, one can do many things that are beneficial to society and to individuals. At this point, the key is how people choose to use and distribute it. This is worldly wisdom holds, as you may also know. In fact, some Chinese characters are quite interesting. The character for money, Qian, has a visually special origin in its form. That is to say, a piece of gold with two people holding knives to fight over it. This is what money means. From this perspective, the ancients also believed that so-called money would ultimately bring countless disasters. We need to know when people have money, they change, and families change as well. Even over time, all sorts of arrogance arise in their hearts. What is the reason that so many families are not harmonious nowadays? Because some people have money. Why is society so unstable now? Why do all kinds of greed and corruption appear these days? It's also because some people have money. After getting money, they have no moral standards in their behavior. All the good thoughts in their minds are completely exhausted. And this is the reason. In today's society, many loopholes and flaws exist. In fact, most are related to money. So from this perspective, Buddhism teaches that we need to carefully observe the society with wisdom. If you don't use money properly, in reality, money is even more frightening than a poisonous snake. If a poisonous snake bites your body, there are some medicines treating the bites. However, if someone's body and mind are poisoned by the money, I'm afraid that damage can never be repaired. I also noticed in some universities, some students whose parents are quite wealthy, yet their own academic performance is poor. The cases happen very often, though not to everyone, mainly because they have everything, they lack for nothing, and at such times, they often display many ugly behaviors in many different situations. On the other hand, those have no money are often children from rural areas and herders. When they get to school, they study quite diligently because they think this opportunity is precious. Instead, throughout their studies, their academic performance remains excellent. Such cases exist. So today, I think for the teachers and students present here, when it comes to the value of money, there are both some advantages and disadvantages. I think that's fair to say. If we use our wealth wisely, then it can bring some happiness to ourselves and others. But we cannot believe that just because we have money, everything in the world should be happy. This is a very simple way of thinking, especially since the beginning of the reform and opening up. It can be said that this stage of economic growth is still in its early phase. At this time, people often tend to place all their hopes and everything on money, but this is a blind approach. When Western countries first experienced economic breakthroughs, they actually went through the same situation. About 20 years ago, I visited the United States. At that time, their overall economic situation was similar to China's current situation. At that time, many Westerners were desperately pursuing money, and they believed that as long as they had US dollars, everything would be solved. But later, when their economy had reached its peak and they looked back, they just realized that humanity cannot gain everything through money. In the end, they returned to their original state, felt that was happiness. You probably don't know that some farmers and herders in remote areas especially yearn for life in the city. They think that living in high-rise buildings and driving luxury cars in the cities and living together with city dwellers, that is the joy of family life. They have this idea. But those who actually have wealth and live in the cities feel that being in a place with blue skies, white clouds, or fields full of wildflowers in such a beautiful environment, this should undoubtedly also be a source of happiness. So everyone here might also want to consider and analyze whether happiness is found in the city or in the countryside. Those who are well off in the city believe that if they go to a quiet, remote place, they should be very happy. There, they wouldn't have the noise of the city or all kinds of complicated interpersonal relationships. They have this idea. Meanwhile, farmers and herders in the countryside think that if they could go to Beijing and spend their entire life, perhaps even all their years, they would be even happier than in paradise. That's what they think. But people from Beijing probably don't see it that way. If you look at Beijing now, the air quality isn't very good. The traffic jams are terrible, and housing prices are extremely high. Plus, there are numerous pressures from daily life, including the fact that competition here would be especially fierce for most people. So I often see that actually, in my experience, when people from big cities go to Tibetan areas, when they arrive on the plateau, they are quite joyful, as if they've already reached paradise, calling out on the mountaintops. They feel as if they've entered another world entirely. But when people from some remote areas come to the city, they also think it's wonderful, so many cars, so many buildings. But people in big cities think when there are too many cars and people, it actually makes them feel weary. So the happiness we are talking about now and our sense of values probably need to be balanced. Before you got into the Central University of Finance and Economics, once others say entering universities, it sounded like such an honor, such a joy in one's life. But when you actually arrive here, for the first day or two, you still feel pretty good. After that, with the teachers' consistently strict and careful management and supervision, or the competition in various aspects of your courses, and so on, it might not be all that enjoyable. Life is the same way. We should perhaps mention that in our lives there are many joys and sorrows, always mixed together, always alternating. This is often the case. At times like this, we should remember that in Buddhism there is a saying, life is ultimately a kind of suffering. But Buddhism does not deny the happiness we have right now. It's not like that. It fully acknowledges it. The happiness we feel today, our songs and dances, the happiness you truly feel in the present moment is fully recognized by Buddhism. However, it points out that our current happiness is fleeting and ever-changing. In a very short time, it can quickly turn into another kind of suffering. When you truly, genuinely, and deeply possess fame and happiness, your state of mind at that moment can also change very quickly. This is called the impermanence of all things. So I think that during the process of learning and acquiring new knowledge, in fact, many people often find themselves should have a broad understanding from multiple perspectives. This is very important. Some of our usual learning may be traditional or habitual, focusing on the analysis of money and material possessions.
But we also need some perspectives and theories from religion, as well as from various different traditional cultures, to help explain our values. What exactly are our value orientation? With so many people in the world, what are their real goals in life? Of course, most people believe it is happiness, but this kind of happiness is also fleeting. If we want everlasting happiness, which is happiness throughout all lifetimes, we may need what Buddhism teaches, which is to perform more good deeds in this very life, especially in our daily lives. For this, we need a truly dedicated good teacher. There are some teachers in schools who indeed have faith and have done some research in this area. The students they guide, it can be said, are versed in spiritual matters. They are very broad-minded and knowledgeable. Some teachers, however, may be somewhat lacking in this regard. This is also related to our society, our environment, and is connected to many different aspects. But now, as Eastern and Western cultures gradually merge, it can be said that Tibetan Buddhism is also gradually beginning to take root in various schools and among different intellectuals and academic circles. I hope the teachers and students here will study Tibetan culture and Tibetan Buddhism more in the future, because within Tibetan Buddhism and Tibetan culture, there are, one could say, very direct and even pithy instructions that can help you suddenly and truly understand and even many of life's questions. I'm not saying this just because I study Tibetan Buddhism, nor am I here to openly advertise it to you or to keep on recommending it to you. That's not what I mean. But after so many years of studying Tibetan Buddhism myself, over the course of my life, I often think during this process, if today's intellectuals could understand such wonderful teachings, it would definitely bring about a great transformation and benefit in their lives. Because with many twists and turns, life is full of ups and downs. You may say that in your daily life, you will encounter many joys and sorrows, obstacles and setbacks throughout your journey. At such times, some young people simply lack the ability to face them. This is especially true for young people today. At home, most of them are only children, treated like princesses and princes. They have grown up under the particularly loving care and nurturing of their parents since childhood. Today, many young people, regarding various external aspects, whether it's often matters of relationships or criticism from others in general, have a very fragile capacity to accept and endure. Some college students, right after graduation, judging by their diplomas, graduates or with master, doctoral or postdoctoral degrees, which all look impressive and pleasing. But when you enter society, there are many things you just don't know how to do. Although the diploma states your degree, in reality, some of your knowledge is not actually as strong or as well established as you might think. Moreover, your character, personality, and ability to accept criticism are all quite poor. This is exactly where growth must happen through disciplined practice, and you need thorough training in this regard. If you haven't undergone such training, then the challenges and difficulties posed by society will without a doubt be extremely and exceptionally great. In the future, perhaps on your own shoulders, there will be not only the burden of your family, but also the responsibilities of society, including your responsibilities toward your parents and the next generation of children. If you don't have strength, wisdom, compassion, or a truly tolerant mindset, the society isn't ancient times. Honestly, even if we don't talk about happiness in the next life, just facing life in this world, patience and tolerance are quite necessary and inevitable. If you lack patience and tolerance, your family may not necessarily be very happy or as content as you might hope in the future. I see that many young people nowadays often seem to be doing very well on the surface, at least at first glance. When compared to previous generations, many young people today in this modern society, including their clothing, their level of knowledge, and their ability to operate high-tech devices,
Many intellectuals in the past were not able to use computers, but now among college students, all can use a computer. However, large quantity knowledge is stored entirely on your laptop, while the knowledge that truly exists in your own mind is not really that much. I've seen many people who can't do anything once they're away from their computers. In the past, people could often write letters by hand and remember everything in their minds. But now, for many people, whether it's giving a lecture or doing anything else, it's all done on computers and phones. As soon as they're away from their computers or phones, they become like mutes or deaf, unable to do anything. This is what our modern era has become. Many people now extremely rely on external things, but the knowledge people truly possess within themselves is actually not that much. At this point, human beings not only recognize the benefits of scientific progress, but also be aware of the potential disadvantages and possible drawbacks of advanced technology. In other words, when you find yourself with absolutely no skills or tools at all, how do you truly face the challenges of life? On this issue, I think that it's also in many ways a kind of thoughtful reflection on the economy, and it's definitely something that's worth pondering carefully. Overall, for each individual person involved in this particular situation here, external wealth, for me personally, certain conditions are necessary, but it doesn't need to be extravagant, nor should it be too meager. It should be moderate. This is the Buddhist view of economics. If you happen to be especially wealthy and have abundant possessions, you shouldn't forget those less fortunate around you. There are so many people out there who really need our help. In Russia, there was once a professor who happened to encounter a poor beggar while walking through the city streets. When he met with the beggar, at that time, it was the dead of winter. He didn't have money in his pocket, but he held the beggar's hand with a deep, lingering regret and said, "I'm sorry I didn't bring any money today." After a while, the beggar said, "In this society, I am someone who has been abandoned. Today, just hearing your comforting words has already made me content." You may have read from different resources, such as articles, books, or stories about Mother Teresa. Just yesterday, I came across a book called Known to Everyone Worldwide. It used the word role model to identify Lei Fang. It talked about learning from the famous Lei Fang and his spirit. We talk about learning from Lei Fang, and the author also mentioned it. The author, Li Chengpeng, said that, in his opinion, learning from Lei Fang is an extremely beneficial. But when we do good deeds, it really shouldn't just be simply superficial. He told a joke. There was an old man crossing the road, and he tried several times. Other people, wanting to do a good deed, wouldn't let him go home and kept dragging him to the other side of the road. Later, this old man collapsed. But when he pretended to fall, no one noticed. What shows that when we do good deeds, it's not just about appearances, image, or simply putting on a show. That's unnecessary. From the perspective of every scholar, it should come from the heart. If I help others, it should be as if I'm helping my own family. This kind of mindset in Buddhism is also known as the altruistic bodhicitta. Some of you here may not have heard of the altruistic bodhicitta. So what is altruistic bodhicitta? It is a mindset where, as we often heard when we were young, do nothing for oneself, do everything for others. It's similar to the Western saying, all for one and one for all, that spirit. However, for ordinary people, this kind of spirit is indeed an unsurpassed supreme state of mind. But today, people at all levels are focused every day on their own development and self-expansion. So in the end, what will this society become? We also need to think about this. We should try to consciously minimize our self-centeredness whenever possible and, instead, maximize our altruistic mindset. This is very important for today's society. However, there is especially a kind of very particularly superficial and form of this. Nowadays, many people like to do this. But I truly think that everyone, whether it happens in a day, a month, or even in a year, at some point in our lives, should truly, from the heart, want to do good deeds that are altruistic and help others. At the same time, in our own lives, we should have a certain order or discipline. It should be reasonable and appropriate. As the ancients said, a gentleman does love wealth, but acquires it in the right way. This important principle is actually already fully and clearly recognized in Buddhism. Buddhism does not oppose this at all, in any way. When you have accumulated merit and blessings, no matter how much gold, silver, or treasure you obtain, it is entirely acceptable. Moreover, if you earn money through reasonable and legitimate means, in a lawful manner, or if you simply wish to acquire certain kinds of property, that is also permitted. We all clearly and fully understand this, of course, in the secular world as well. However, for everyone present here, whether you have such blessings or not is hard to say. Some people, because they truly did good deeds in their past lives, good deeds in previous lives, that the wealth of this life can be said to come effortlessly, arriving in abundance without any diligent and hard work. Some people, on the other hand, have never accumulated any merit in this regard. So no matter how hard or diligently they work in this life, I'm afraid money is getting farther and farther away from you. You may not believe in the concept of past and future lives, but they truly do exist. It's just that because of your environment and your education, and the reasons for the influences surrounding all aspects of your daily life, so you don't believe it. In fact, nowadays, both science and Buddhism offer reasons to show past and future lives exist. Since past and future lives exist, then the good and bad karma you created in previous lives leads to the happiness and suffering you experience in this life. And the merit or negative karma that you create in this life through your actions and choices, ultimately, it all matters. It will lead to happiness and suffering, wealth and poverty in your future lives. Therefore, when it comes to cause and effect, we especially emphasize and hope that all of you in your daily lives understand that having a reasonable, balanced, and fair approach is extremely important. Seeing it from a historical perspective, it should be said that those who possess great spiritual wealth are not necessarily those with worldly tainted riches. For example, when Socrates was about to die, his disciples asked him, "Do you have any last wishes or a will?" Socrates replied, "I don't have any last wishes right now. I still need to return a chicken to someone. Other than that, everything else is taken care of." Many wise people, when analyzing this, have said that Socrates was someone extremely rich in spiritual wealth, but in terms of his worldly possessions, he honestly couldn't even pay back a single chicken. That's just how it was. We often say, be content in poverty and take joy in the way. Even in this world, those who accumulate more and more wealth probably have no time to pursue knowledge. But when life is relatively poor or just simply moderate and average, at that time, your interest in pursuing knowledge grows stronger and stronger. So, in a certain sense, this is how I see it. So-called property, so-called wealth, actually on the path forward, it isn't necessarily a good thing. Some people think, congratulations, he has become rich. But perhaps this wealth, behind his getting rich, will also potentially create certain significant obstacles for his character and his entire life as well. Therefore, everyone should have an attitude of going with the flow in daily life. I often emphasize this. In Buddhism, we talk about going with the flow. What does that mean? When you have good fortune, through your own efforts, everything will come about, things will go smoothly, and success will come naturally. If you lack fortune from previous life, whatever you do, you still won't have it. So, in certain situations, it is actually more practical to simply go with the flow, allowing events to unfold naturally. I really hope that everyone here Not only does it have external wealth and resources, such as financial assets, property, and other valuable materials, which help support your daily needs and provide stability in your life, at the same time, the most important thing for everyone is spiritual wealth. Being rich in spiritual wealth, even if, in terms of what is visible to others from the outside, you are not as wealthy or financially well off as others might say or believe, the inner happiness you experience cannot be described in words. I know a Tibetan person whose heart is always filled with a sense of joy, radiating happiness and cheerful spirit, and bring warmth to all those he meets. But what is it that he pursues? Apart from the truth, he is very easygoing about most external things. If each of us could be like him, I truly believe that in time, this world would become genuinely wonderful and amazing place. I hope that if you have any suggestions or ideas, feel free to raise it up. We can all share and discuss them together. Thank you all so much for your attention.